Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Let's Talk About live podcast, where we talk about love, intimacy, and relationships and everything else that goes along with it. So, let's just dive right in. Who am I? My name, of course, is Tila, and I'm a sex educator, relationship expert, and published author. I write exploresextalk.com, and I love helping people connect with their sexuality, help navigate relationship issues. It's such a huge and important part of our lives, and it shouldn't be as hard as people make it, right? So, this is a live podcast, as I mentioned. So what does that mean? It means that your comments will show up in the video feed. So please be nice, and also you can call in. We accept live callers on the show, although this will be the last live show that we do. We are going to switch to a more traditional podcast format. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So let's open up the phone lines now, so you can call in with your thoughts, questions, comments, or stories at 1-877-777-5589. You can always call in with any thoughts or questions that you have. It doesn't matter if it's related to the topic that we're discussing, which of course today is, why do girls always date jerks? It's a very valid question. Now, I'm just going to make sure all of our feeds are up. It looks like we are good. How's everybody doing today? Drop it in the chat. Let me know you're here. All right. So, why do girls always date jerks? This is a pretty common question that comes up a lot. It's probably the top third question I get from guys who reach out asking for guidance. And the answer is actually a little bit more complex than you would think. And so we're going to dive into that just a little bit. So one of the first reasons that, girls always seem to go for jerks is that confidence is very attractive to most people. I think we can all agree on that. If you see somebody and they're kind of meek and quiet and reserved, they're not going to be quite as noticeable as someone who is confident. So confidence is pretty key. And the funny thing about confidence is that it can actually masquerade really easily as arrogance, especially if it's somebody that you don't know very well. Somebody who may be super arrogant, may just come off as being really confident. And it's really easy for people to mistake the two, especially for younger people who may not have as much experience with actual confidence, because as many of us have experienced, and I'm sure you listening experienced, going through the teen years, going through puberty, for starting dating, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of trying to fit in with other people's expectations. And that can actually be quite damaging to self-esteem. Teenage years is known, or at least should be known, for being quite trying on self-esteem, because people are jostling. They're trying to figure out their place. They're trying to figure out what they're supposed to be doing. And we don't actually give a lot of guidelines to people during this time. It's quite a difficult age. And we just sort of expect people to kind of get through it. And a lot of the times adults around will just be like, oh, it's the teenagers, it's just, it's puberty, it's whatever, it's not a big deal. But it is a big deal. Hey, Amanda. So, having your confidence shaken at that age, and so you're sort of looking for examples of what confidence looks like. And so, of course, you turn to, what you see on the media, what you see other people do. There's a lot of, perceptions around what's cool, what's confident, what's in, and people tend to sort of gravitate towards that, whether or not it's actually confidence, which in most cases it often isn't. So a lot of people masquerade as confidence, and I find that in many cases, a lot of jerks, so to speak, are very good at that. They're very good at masquerading confidence. They feel very secure, or pretend to feel very secure in who they are. And so at first glance, it's not always super obvious that they either don't lack confidence or they're just really arrogant. So that's kind of one of the first kind of reasons that women tend to go for jerks. The second one, which I kind of touched on a little bit with the first, is that, like I said, when you're going through those years of formulating who you are and figuring out who you want to be, you look towards examples in the media and your favorite shows and people you look up to and you admire. What are they like? What are they doing? Who are they with? What kinds of people they're with. And we try and emulate those things before we sort of figure out who we are, because as younger people, we're just trying to fit in. Lots of people are just trying to fit in. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it does mean that we make a lot of mistakes. We go for things that aren't right for us, that, end up being bad for us because we think it's what we should be doing based on, what we're told or what we're not told or what we see other people doing. Does that make sense? Is everybody with me so far? I mean, cultural influences and peer pressure place a huge amount of pressure on dating, particularly when you're younger. When things are not as clear and you're really looking for some guidance and not finding any, it's really easy to get wrapped up in what you think you should be. And young women are sent a lot of very conflicting messages about their sexuality. They're supposed to be confident and sexy and secure and, willing to try new things and be adventurous, but at the same time, they're supposed to be modest and not put themselves out there, but they should be submissive, but they should be strong, there's all these different conflicting messages. And young men get the, conflicting messages too, but it's just the way women are sexualized from such a young age, and they're so heavily policed and told what to do with their sexuality from such a young age, that a lot of young women make the mistake of, well, I should date this guy because that's who I think I should, or that's who, people will respect me if I date this person, or what have you, right? So it's a lot about people doing what they think other people will admire them for, because, like I said, peer pressure plays a huge role. And if you think that it doesn't, think back to either your life now or maybe your life as a teenager, and how those different peer pressures affected you, right? You might have dated somebody who wasn't great for you because they were like really popular or, really well known, and everybody sort of wants that. Or you could have gone the opposite way and chosen to hold yourself apart from all that kind of high school politics, and I'm sure that also had its impacts as well. So those peer pressures play a huge role. And unfortunately, young women, when they have not found themselves yet, and are receiving all these conflicting messages about who they should be and what their sexuality should be and how they should express that, will tend to go with what is commonly modeled to women. And that's going for, the attractive, good-looking guy who probably is a bit cold and standoffish and sort of, follows a lot of toxic masculinity traits, because that's often what's modeled to young women as who they should aspire to be with. One of the last ones that I want to talk about, and it's, I feel, pretty important and often overlooked, I find, is the idea that being nice is great, okay? Most women, when they talk about people they want to date or people they're interested in, they do want to date someone who's nice. They do want a nice guy. However, the sticking point that I think a lot of men either have not thought about, or it's not talked about enough for men, or anything like that, is just sort of boils down to I guess the easiest way to say it is that nice is not a dateable quality. If you think about what you look for in a partner and what kind of attributes they have, or what kind of things that attract you. Sure, everybody kind of says they want to be with somebody nice. However, being nice is not enough to hold attraction, and I think that's sort of true for any gender. You may be friends with somebody because they're nice, and because you're going to be friends with them because they're nice. You get along well, they're great, you enjoy their company, but that doesn't automatically follow that you're going to be attracted to them. And being nice is not enough. Especially in the eyes of many women, being nice is kind of like the baseline. Like, everybody should be nice. Okay, everybody should be nice. So saying, I'm a nice guy. Okay, well, so that's great. You're a human being. Good for you. Right? It's not enough to actually be attractive or to hold the attention of someone. People tend to go for jerks, and actual legitimate jerks. Sorry, you can hear, but it's a bit quiet. Let me see if I can fix that for you. Thank you very much for letting me know it's quiet. How's that? Is that better? Are we getting better here? Oh, I know why, because my level is totally down. There we go. There we go. Now we're getting it. Sorry, I didn't see my level being a little down there. Thank you for that. So as I was saying, yeah, nice is just not a very dateable quality. When we are looking at people that we want to date people that we share interests in. We want to date people that have confidence, that have specific things about them that make them unique. When a guy says, I'm a nice guy, that's not telling anybody who you are. That's not selling yourself as an ideal partner, an ideal boyfriend, or whoever you want to be. People are attracted to similar interests, to qualities. If you have a hobby that you love, it is better for you to be like, I love Dungeons and Dragons. I know there's lots of jokes about nerds not playing Dungeons and Dragons, but that is changing, okay? Like, lots of people play it, and you know what? There's lots of women who find that attractive too. So it's not, you should really pick on interests that you have. That should be your leading point. Don't say I'm nice. Say I love skiing. Say I love hiking. Say I love playing video games. Say I'm really passionate about reading this author. Whatever it is that you actually love doing, because ideally when we're looking to start a relationship with someone, we don't want to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't match our interests. We don't want to be in a relationship with someone who is fake, right? If you start out a relationship on fake pretenses, there's a really good chance it's not going to last very long. It is going to fizzle out quickly. You have to build that foundation of common interests and good communication, right? Does that make sense? So you guys picking up what I'm putting down here? So the thing about jerks is that I don't know if they just know it intuitively, or maybe they just don't care and they're just sort of going with whatever they're doing or jamming it however they jam. But the point is that a lot of jerks don't lead with, I'm a nice guy. It's not something that you hear them say very often. And if you hear a guy saying that, there's chances are they're not actually a nice guy. I mean, I know there's lots of nice guys out there who say they are, but also if your main selling point is pushing how much of a nice guy you are, it actually can sometimes set off little red flags like, oh, why are you making that a point? Because as I said earlier, a lot of women see being nice is kind of a baseline for a human being, right? So if you're making a big show of, a big emphasis on what a nice guy you are, it's kind of like a red flag. Like, why are you pointing that out? Shouldn't that just be the way things are? But yeah, so jerks have a tendency to lead with what they're good at, or what they do well, or, something that gives them confidence, and that makes them more attractive, right? And also makes them a little bit more like a real person. Not to say that people aren't real people, but when you're talking to somebody and the difference between sort of dynamic and interesting and, for lack of better terminology that's coming to mind, bland, or boring. You know, if you're engaged in a conversation with somebody and all they have to say is, I'm nice, you know, you should give me a shot, I'm nice. It's not really, how interested would you be in continuing that conversation, right? The chances are, I mean, you probably wouldn't be interested. You know, if you take it on the flip side, guys, and some random girl who, you know, maybe you find attractive but isn't super sensational to you and you've never really spoken to before, you know, engages you at a party and just, oh yeah, I'm a really nice girl. Okay. Where does the conversation go from there, right? It's not a good conversation starter. It's usually a conversation ender. So, you know, when you're thinking about why girls always go after jerks, like I said, it's because the jerks know how to sell themselves, how to talk about themselves, and how to engage people in interest by showcasing what they're good at. And I think that the rest of guys just haven't quite figured that out, or maybe lack the confidence to do that. Or maybe they've tried to do it and their interests weren't well received a few times. So now they're like, oh, I don't really want to talk about that because that doesn't work. There's something to be said about charisma as well. I think that plays into it quite a bit. And that kind of goes with the whole confidence thing that we were talking about earlier. Many jerks or confident men have a certain charisma about them. They feel comfortable talking. If you're talking to somebody who feels nervous talking to you, once again, that can sort of make the conversation less engaging and not necessarily make people want to continue talking to you. As I'm mentioning all this, one of the things that does come to mind is the flip side of that is don't go with too much false confidence, because that is also kind of a turnoff. And no cheesy pickup lines, please. It's terrible. Just don't use them. No woman ever wants to hear that, ever. I remember one time I was going for class and I was running for a bus because I thought I was going to be late, and I was going to be late for class, and some guy like stood in my way and to deliver this like cheesy, horrible pickup line. It was terrible. And then I was mad because I missed my bus. Don't do that to people. It's not fun, and it's not going to get you dates. Okay, just don't. Yeah. So, you know, don't lead with too much false confidence. That's definitely a big thing. The trick is to be authentic. And I know there's probably some people listening to this who are like, authentic? Well, that hasn't got me anywhere. When I've been authentic, it's been off-putting to people, or maybe it didn't. That girl that I liked, you know, didn't really respond to that. Well, yeah, there's going to be people that don't respond to it. There's going to be people that are not interested in the same things you are. That doesn't mean that you are a bad person or they're a bad person or anything like that. It just means that they're not interested in the things you are. And as I sort of established, when you kind of don't build that foundation of common interests, you don't build that good communication, relationships are kind of likely to fizzle out. Those are not the exclusive reasons, of course, but it does play into, it's one of the many, many factors that play into longevity of relationships. So it's pretty key. And especially in those initial stages when you're sort of getting to know each other, the less you have in common, unless you have physical attraction, the relationship's going to end very quickly. And even once the physical attraction passes, the relationship is likely to fizzle out as soon as that's sort of burnt out. So, you know, it's important to remember that there's lots of people out there with lots of different interests, and not to be discouraged because you see some girl always kind of going for the jerk, or because they're not responding to your particular interests or personality. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any thoughts or comments or questions about anything I just said? There's lots of people on the call today, but you guys are all super quiet. I know it's like a lot to take in. It's funny often when I talk to men about the nice issue and why girls always go for jerks and that whole nice bit that we just talked about, so many guys are like, whoa, I've never thought about that before. That totally makes sense, though. Yeah, I think it's just a lot about how we think about things and how we process things, and a lot how we're socialized. I mean, guys are not exactly given a lot of direction either when it comes to good ways of courting women. A lot of it feeds into, a lot of toxic relationship styles, which unfortunately seem to, dominate a lot of people's ideas about sex, sexuality, and dating, which is unfortunate, because you should definitely challenge some of those very unhealthy relationships. Okay, well, that's sort of all I wanted to chat about when it came to why girls always date jerks. A little short and sweet today. There's probably a little bit more we could go into, but okay, so a comment coming in. Sorry, I can't call. I was wondering about authentic confidence. If a person is struggling with their confidence, how can it build it authentically and avoid fake or false confidence? Excellent question, and thank you for asking that. Confidence is super challenging to build. One of the things I always like to recommend is for people who don't know where to start, and I'm gonna start there because that's usually where people need the most help. Is I don't know how to start. A good way to start building that is to think about people that you admire and make like a list. Pick, I don't know, 5-10 people that you really admire, and then think about what is it that you admire about them. And I want you to like drill really deep about that. Don't just be like, oh, like if it's a celebrity, oh, they're rich, they're famous. There's more to it than that. That is not enough, because otherwise you admire everyone who is rich and famous. And there's a lot of rich and famous people out there, right? You probably don't admire everyone. So what is it about these 5 to 10 people on your list that you think are amazing? What makes them amazing? And really drill down. And I want you to write down all of those traits, okay? And then after you have all those traits, take a look and see where the common themes are, are trying to think of a few examples of common themes now. Sorry, I kind of put on the spot, but that's all right. Here we go. So, do they have a core foundation of ethics? What is their work ethic like? Are they charismatic? Trying to figure out the common underlying things. And once you have figured out what those things are, whether they're uncompromising, whether they're strong, whether, they always speak their mind, or they're very honest, or, whatever those key traits are. Once you have that list of the common ones from all the people that you really admire, and then you can start to look at, how do I do those things? How am I good at those things? Okay? Because that's going to give you a lot of key concepts about what you really value. And when you start doing things and acting in ways that you value and you feel are valuable, your confidence is going to naturally increase. You will start feeling better about yourself. You will start talking about how good you feel. And that's going to lead to a lot more genuine confidence, right? Because now you're not, I know a lot of people say, oh, with confidence, you just have to fake it till you make it. Sometimes that works, but most of the time it doesn't. Particularly for anybody who really struggles with their self-esteem. It can feel really false, and then if you feel awkward about it, people are going to pick up that you feel awkward about it. So I don't actually really recommend the whole, fake confidence. I mean, I do think that it works to a certain extent. If you can fake a little bit of confidence and it seems genuine, people will respond to you like you're confident, which will in turn boost your confidence. However, there's a lot of ways for that to backfire. So I do recommend that you, look for those traits, figure out how you can either how you do them or how you can aspire to do them or build towards doing whatever those traits are. And that's going to naturally build up your self-esteem and your confidence. Does that make sense? Hope I answered your question okay. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions? That was a good one. Thank you for doing that. thoughts or questions. All right. Well, that's okay. So as I mentioned at the start of this call, I have been doing these live broadcasts since the beginning of May. And the goal of mine was to help people and to give people real-time feedback. And I think that that's gone pretty well. Unfortunately, we have not had as many callers as I would have liked. We've had about 2 in the time I've been doing this. So, and in interest, I realized that some of these things can be quite sensitive to talk about, and sometimes people feel reluctant to come forward because they don't want to be named, or they don't feel as comfortable voicing what some of their concerns or questions are. So, in effort to be as helpful as possible and try and remove some of those barriers, what I'm going to do is we're going to transition this into a normal pre-recorded podcast, and that will still be published weekly. I'm still going to publish it on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. and it will publish to Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Podbean. I feel like I'm forgetting one, but it's all on my website. And what we're going to do is going to set up an email. It's going to be questions@exploresextalk.com, and you can email in your questions, and each week we will address a topic, and then I will address any questions that have come in that people have sent in that they'd like to hear answers to. And I think that'll give us a little bit of a better flow. And if there's interest in the future, maybe we can look at doing some lives again. But for the meantime, I think we're going to try and reduce some of those barriers and discomfort, because I've had quite a few people reach out to me via email, I mean, like, oh, I really want to ask this, but I'm afraid to I don't want to call in, or I don't want to comment because I don't want my name on there. Totally cool. I get it. So we'll try this. We'll do some questions, so that way we can still, because if you're asking the questions, there's a good chance other people are too, and that's sort of the point of getting this information out there. Anyway, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you continue to check out my future episodes. And I hope you guys have a fantastic week. If you're looking for more information on sex ed, relationships, dating, please check out my website, exploresextalk.com. And I also have a Sexy Hero Society membership, which is a paid membership, but it gives you access to tons of fantastic extra content every month, from like erotica slams to coloring pages to adult cartoons to sex tips to sex positions. It's like awesome. Anyway, so yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, please share, and we will see you all next time. Thanks so much.